It's 1989, Fort Benning, Georgia. The Georgia sun is cooking the parade deck like a frying pan. A scrawny 17-year-old kid, barely 90 pounds, soaking wet, stands at attention in brand new ACUS that look like they're wearing him instead of the other way around. His helmet keeps slipping over his eyes. His rifle looks like a telephone pole in his tiny hands. The entire platoon is snickering. Then the drill sergeant, a 6'4", 240-pound monster of a man with a voice like a chainsaw, gets right up in the kid's face, so close the recruit can smell the Copenhagen on his breath, and screams, "You will never be a soldier. You're a waste of perfectly good oxygen. You're too small, too weak, and too damn pathetic. I give you 1 week before you quit and go crying home to mommy." The kid doesn't flinch. He locks his bony jaw, stares straight ahead, and in a voice so quiet only the drill sergeant can hear, he says, "See you at graduation, drill sergeant." The drill sergeant laughs so hard he almost drops his campaign hat. The whole company loses it. They start calling the kid Runt, Shrimp, Private Bones. They bet push-ups on how many days until he rings the bell and quits. But 30 years later, that same 90-pound shrimp stood on the steps of the Pentagon in a perfectly tailored dress blue uniform covered in 4 silver stars. The youngest 4-star general in the history of the United States Army. And the drill sergeant who told him he'd never be a soldier. He was in the audience, retired, tears rolling down his face, saluting the man he once tried to break. This is the true story of General Elijah James E.J. Maddox, the kid everyone said was too small to even carry the flag, who ended up carrying the entire army on his back. And if you think you already know this story, trust me, you don't know the half of it. Because what happened between that screaming match on the parade deck and the day he pinned on his 4th star is one of the wildest, most insane, most motivating journeys you will ever hear. Stay until the end, because I'm going to show you the exact letter he wrote to that drill sergeant 25 years later. A letter that went so viral inside the military, it's still read at every single basic training graduation to this day. Let's start at the very beginning, because Elijah Maddox wasn't supposed to survive childhood, let alone become the most decorated 4-star in modern history. Elijah was born in 1972 in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, a little town called Slocum with 1 red light and more cotton fields than people. His mom was 16, his dad, never in the picture. They lived in a single wide trailer with holes in the floor you could see the chickens through. Dinner was whatever the church food pantry had that week. Some nights it was just mayonnaise sandwiches. By age 10, Elijah weighed 62 pounds. Doctors said he had failure to thrive. The other kids called him Skeletor. He got beat up so regularly, he learned to run like the wind. And run he did. Every morning at 4:30 a.m., barefoot on red dirt roads, because his shoes had holes, and he didn't want anyone to see. He ran so his lungs would grow bigger. He ran so his legs would get stronger. He ran because the only time nobody could catch him and hurt him was when he was running. At 14, he found a rusted 25-pound barbell plate behind the trailer park dumpster. He dragged it home and started doing curls in the living room while watching cartoons. His grandma walked in, looked at this little stick figure kid lifting scrap metal, and said, "Boy, what in God's name are you doing?" He looked up, sweat dripping off his chin, and said, "I'm fixing what God got wrong, Grandma." That was Elijah Maddox in a nutshell. Never accepted the hand he was dealt. Always rewriting the rules of what was possible. Fast forward to senior year of high school. He's still only 5'6", still only 105 pounds. But now, it's 105 pounds of pure cable wire muscle. He's captain of the cross-country team, wrestling team, and somehow still finds time to work 30 hours a week at the Piggly Wiggly to keep the lights on at home. The army recruiter comes to the school. Elijah walks in wearing a shirt 2 sizes too big and says, "I want to enlist." The recruiter looks him up and down, tries not to laugh, and says, "Son, you don't meet the minimum weight requirement. Come back when you can fog a mirror without disappearing." Elijah doesn't blink. He walks straight to the cafeteria, buys 12 peanut butter crackers and 3 cartons of whole milk, sits down, and eats them all in 4 minutes. Then he walks back to the recruiter, burps, and says, "Weigh me again." He gained 4 pounds in 4 minutes. Recruiter shook his head, stamped the paperwork, and said, "Kid, you're either gonna be the best soldier I ever signed, or the biggest pain in my ass." Turns out he was both. Basic training at Fort Benning, summer of 1989. That's where we came in. That's where Drill Sergeant 1st CLA. That's where Drill Sergeant 1st Class Marcus Bulldog Washington decided Elijah Maddox was his personal project, meaning he was going to destroy him or make him quit. Day 1. The shark attack. You know the scene. Trainees get off the bus, drill sergeants screaming, pure chaos. Elijah is last off the bus because he's carrying not only his own duffel, but the 300-pound kid in front of him passed out from heat. So Elijah threw him over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes and carried him to formation. Drill Sergeant Washington saw that. His exact words, recorded by another drill sergeant who still tells the story, "Who the hell is that little gremlin carrying Private Fatbody?" From that moment, Washington decided Elijah was either going to be the example of what happens when you show up cocky, or he was going to break the kid so bad the army would make a training video out of it. For 8 straight weeks, Elijah got the absolute worst of it. Extra push-ups, fire guard shift at AM every night, rucking with 2 rucksacks, cleaning the latrine with a toothbrush, while the rest of the platoon slept. One night, Washington makes the entire platoon do flutter kicks in the rain because Elijah's locker wasn't perfectly aligned. They're out there for 2 hours. Everyone is cursing Elijah under their breath. A couple of the bigger guys decide they're going to have a blanket party for the little runt who's making their life hell. Lights out. They wait until the drill sergeant leaves. 6 of them surround Elijah's bunk with blankets and bars of soap. Elijah sits up before they can even grab him and says, "Come as you please, y'all. Sure you want to do this?" The biggest one, a 6'3" farm boy from Iowa built like a refrigerator, laughs and says, "You're done, shrimp." Elijah stands up on his bunk in nothing but his brown army t-shirt and PD shorts, looks the guy dead in the eye, and says, "I've been beat up by experts. You're amateurs, but go ahead. Touch me, and I promise every single one of you will wake up in the hospital wondering what truck hit you." Dead silence. You could hear the rain on the roof. Then Elijah does something nobody expected. He steps down, grabs the big guy's hand, puts it on his own shoulder, and says, "Feel that? That's 3 years of carrying 80-pound cotton sacks from dawn to dusk. You think you're tough because you played football? I've been fighting for my life since I was 5. You want to swing, swing. But when I'm done, don't cry when they ship you home in a body cast." The guy pulls his hand back, mutters something, and walks away. The rest follow. Nobody ever touched Elijah again. Word gets back to Drill Sergeant Washington. Most drill sergeants would have smoked the whole platoon for attempted blanket party. Washington does something different. He walks into the bay at AM, flips on the lights, and screams, "Private Maddox, front and center." Elijah jumps out of bed, stands at attention in his boxers. Washington gets nose to nose and says, "I hear you think you're Billy Badass now. Tomorrow is the 12-mile ruck march. You're going to carry the M60 machine gun, the tripod, and the radio. That's 92 extra pounds. You fall out, I will personally throw you off my post. Do you understand me?" Elijah says, "Yes, drill sergeant." Washington smirks. "Thought you'd quit by now." Elijah looks him dead in his eyes and says, "Drill sergeant, the only way I'm leaving this post is in a pine box or with that expert infantry badge. Your choice." Washington actually smiled for the first time all cycle. Next day, 12-mile ruck, 90-degree heat, Georgia, humidity so thick you can chew it. Everyone is dying by mile 8. Elijah is carrying almost his own body weight in extra gear, singing Jody Calls the whole way. Mile 10, the biggest guy in the platoon, the same one who wanted the blanket party, goes down with heat stroke. Elijah, without breaking stride, throws the dude over his shoulder. Fireman carries him the last 2 miles while still carrying all the extra gear. Finishes first, collapses. Medics rush him. He's got a core temp of 104.8. They're about to medevac him. He sits up on the stretcher, pulls the 4 out of his arm, and says, "I'm walking to graduation, Doc. Tape me up." They taped his ankles, gave him 2 bags of saline, and he marched the final 100 yards to the company area with the rest of the platoon. Drill. Sergeant Washington is waiting at the finish line. He looks at Elijah, covered in salt, lips cracked, eyes bloodshot, and for the first time all cycle, he doesn't scream. He just says, "Fall in, soldier," and salutes him. Graduation day. Family day is the day before, but Elijah has no family coming. He's sitting alone on the bleachers watching everyone else hug their moms and dads. Washington walks up, sits down next to him, and hands him an envelope. Inside is a bus ticket home, and a note that says, "I was wrong about you, Maddox. You're the real deal. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." Bulldog. Elijah still has that note framed in his office at the Pentagon to this day. But this story is just getting started. Because what Elijah Maddox did after basic training is the stuff of absolute legend. He goes to airborne school, jumps out of planes at 125 pounds looking like a backpack with legs. Then Ranger school, 61 days of pure hell. He's the honor grad. The cadre can't believe it. They start calling him the Mosquito, small, annoying, and impossible to kill. Then he volunteers for Special Forces Selection, SFAS, Special Forces Assessment and Selection, known for breaking big, strong guys in half. Elijah shows up looking like he's 14. The cadre take one look and start taking bets on how long he lasts. He lasts the full 24 days. Never once in the bottom 10. Finishes top 5%. They've literally never seen anything like it. Q course, language school. He learns Arabic so well, the instructors think he's a native speaker with a weird accent. By 1991, he's a Green Beret wearing a tab on his shoulder and still only weighs 135 pounds. Gulf War kicks off. His ODA Operational Detachment Alpha gets sent in early, way early, like, before the air war even starts. Their mission: sneak 200 miles behind Iraqi lines, link up with Kurdish resistance, and light up Scud missile sites for the Air Force. They insert by helo at night. Helo takes ground fire, crashes. Whole team has to E&E escape and evade on foot through the desert. Elijah carries the 90-pound PRC-117 radio the entire time, plus the wounded pilot, for 3 days, while being hunted by Iraqi patrols. They make it to the Kurdish safe house. Over the next 40 days, his team calls in so many airstrikes, they personally account for the destruction of 38 Scud launchers. The Air Force general sends them a thank you note that says, "You saved Tel Aviv." Elijah gets a Silver Star. He's 21 years old, but he's just warming up. 9/11 happens. Elijah is now a captain. His team is one of the first into Afghanistan, OTA 595. Wait, no, that's the Horse Soldiers movie. Elijah was actually on the other team that inserted the same week, OTA 572. They ride horses, actual horses, into the Hindu Kush, link up with Northern Alliance, and over the next 2 months they take down the Taliban in the north. Elijah personally climbs a 12,000-foot mountain in a blizzard with a broken ankle to call in a laser-guided bomb on a Taliban command bunker. The bomber pilot later said, "That little dude's laser was so steady, thought it was a tripod." Another Silver Star. Upgrade to Bronze Star with V. He's 28. Iraq, 2003, now a major, leading a team hunting high-value targets. One night in Fallujah, his team gets ambushed. 12 guys pinned down by 50-plus insurgents with PKMs and RPGs. Elijah grabs an M240 machine gun, a 27-pound beast, stands up in the middle of the street like an absolute psycho, and lays down suppressive fire while screaming, "Get some! Get some!" He empties 4 100-round belts, kills 19 enemy fighters confirmed, and holds the street long enough for his team to flank and finish the fight. The Marines who watched it happen said it was like watching Captain America. If Captain America was 5'6" and cursed like a sailor. Distinguished Service Cross, only 1 step below the Medal of Honor. He's 31. By 2011, he's a colonel. Commands the entire 5th Special Forces Group. 2014, ISIS is on the rampage. Elijah gets sent back to Iraq as the commander of all special operations forces in the country. Under his leadership, Jacques runs 3,500 raids in 18 months. They kill or capture over 12,000 ISIS fighters and rescue thousands of Yazidi civilians from Mount Sinjar. He becomes the only officer in history to be awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, 4 Silver Stars, and 8 Bronze Stars with V. All before the age of 45. The president calls. They want to make him a general. 1 star, he says, only if I can still go out with the teams. They agree. 2 stars. 3 stars, Deputy Commander of All Special Operations Command. And then, 2025. The announcement comes down. 4 stars. Youngest in history, 53 years old. The ceremony is held at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty. And in the front row, wearing his retiree badge and a chest full of medals from Vietnam, is retired Sergeant Major Marcus Bulldog Washington, now 77 years old. After the president pins on the 4th star, Elijah steps to the podium. He doesn't talk about his medals. He doesn't talk about the raids or the battles. He looks straight at Bulldog Washington and says, 36 years ago, a drill sergeant looked at a scared, skinny kid from Alabama and told him he would never be a soldier. That drill sergeant pushed me, smoked me, and tried to break me every single day for 9 weeks. And because of that, I am standing here today. Sergeant Major Washington, would you please come forward?
The entire audience of 10,000 people stands up. Bulldog walks up, back ramrod straight even at 77, tears already flowing. Elijah pulls a small box out of his pocket, gets down on one knee in front of the entire army, and says, "You were the first person who ever believed I could be more than a 90-pound nobody. You just had a funny way of showing it. I never got to properly thank you." He opens the box. He pins them on Bulldog's retiree lapel and says, "These belong to you as much as they belong to me." The place absolutely erupts. Grown men are sobbing. The video gets 40 million views in 48 hours. And then Elijah reads the letter, the one I promised you. He pulls out a folded piece of paper, voice cracking for the first time ever in public, and reads, "Dear Drill Sergeant Washington, you told me I would never be a soldier. You were wrong, but you were also right. I wasn't a soldier that day on the parade deck. You made me one. Every push-up in the rain, every 3 a.m. fireguard shift, every time you called me worthless, you were forging me into something stronger than steel. You taught me that the size of the fight in the dog matters infinitely more than the size of the dog in the fight. I've carried your voice in my head on every battlefield for the last 36 years. Every time I wanted to quit, I heard you screaming, 'Maddox, you worthless maggot, get your ass up that hill.' And I got up. So thank you. Thank you for being the meanest, roughest, toughest son of a bitch I ever met. The 4 stars on my shoulders, they're yours. Your loving soldier forever, E.J. Maddox, General, U.S. Army." He folds the letter, salutes Bulldog one last time, and the 2 men embrace while the entire army loses its mind. And somewhere, a new private, maybe 90 pounds soaking wet, watching this on his phone in a basic training bay, decides he's not quitting today. If this story lit even the smallest fire in you, if you're sitting there thinking, "Man, I've been told I'm too small, too weak, too broke, too whatever," then do me a favor right now. We are going to tell the stories that remind you the only limits that exist are the ones you accept. And I promise you, if a 90-pound kid from a trailer park in Alabama can pin on 4 stars, there is literally nothing you cannot do. Turn on the bell. Because next week, we are dropping the untold story of the female soldier who was told she'd never make it through SEAL training, and became the first woman to ever wear the trident. You are not going to want to miss it.